Yesterday afternoon, Governor Kathy Hochul elevated the drought watch across southern New York State to a drought warning. People in the Hudson Valley and New York City are being encouraged to conserve water. There's a real concern of wells and reservoirs getting dry. And there's a statewide burn ban until November 30th because there's a high fire danger warning around the state. This is the kind of thing that happens out west, not here, right? But here we are. And of course, a wildfire in Orange County has consumed thousands of acres. We get an update on that from a forest ranger who's been fighting that fire on today's story of the day. Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, November 19th. First up, sending a package in the new year will be a little more expensive. Starting on January 19th, the United States Postal Service will be raising its shipping services prices by between 3.2 and 4%, depending on the service. That change comes after the USPS reported a net loss of $9.5 billion for the 2024 fiscal year. Leaders of the Postal Service say the high shipping rates will bring in more revenue. Mailing service prices are not changing, so the price of first-class stamps will stay the same. Tourists and part-time residents flock to Cape Vincent in the summer to enjoy the St. Lawrence River. But when the weather starts to cool, the crowds pack up, and so do many local businesses that can't afford to stay open year-round. The seasonal boom and bust is now affecting Cape Vincent's only grocery store. Catherine Wheeler reports the local food pantry and the rest of the community are having to adapt.
We're rolling into the holiday season, and that's the busiest time of year at the Cape Vincent Community Food Pantry.
We average 24 to 46 households per month. In the summer, it's lower, and of course, during the holidays, it's at its highest.
That's Executive Director Rebecca Dowling. She says the food pantry has two ways it helps people access food. The main way is kind of like Instacart. Clients call in their orders for groceries like frozen veggies and bread.
Then we put it all together, and then they are given a time the next morning to come and pick it up. Those that don't have transportation, we do deliver to.
Dowling says the food pantry also has a voucher system at the local grocery store, Frenchtown Market. It allows people to buy things they can't get at the food pantry, like fresh milk, eggs, cheese, and meat.
We give a monthly voucher of $15 for the first person in the household, and then we add an additional $5 per person. So a family of three would receive $25.
But for the first time, Frenchtown Market is closing for the winter. The owners say a lot of things have piled up: steadily rising business costs, competition from Dollar General and bigger grocery stores in Clayton and Watertown, and a declining population. Dowling says the news was devastating.
It affects so many people. I mean, it affects the whole village. The pantry clients are going to be the ones least affected because they have us to come to.
Dowling says they found a way to bridge the gap for their clients. The food pantry is taking the money they would spend on the vouchers over the winter and buying the food themselves. She says they're already building up their stores of items like bacon and lunch meat. But Dowling says there's a slice of the community who doesn't use the food pantry, who also don't drive. And this situation leaves them stranded. So she says the Cape Vincent Local Redevelopment Corporation has set up a van ride to the Surefine supermarket in Clayton every other week. It runs through the end of March.
It will be a free service. They received funding from donations to cover any cost that it would have, and so people that don't have the transportation can get there through the winter.
Dowling says Cape Vincent is coming together to find grassroots solutions.
Consider your neighbor if you're going in to the market. Ask them if they need something, especially if you have neighbors that don't drive. Consider that. It could be the best gift someone receives this holiday.
Dowling says when Frenchtown Market opens in April, the food pantry will go back to its regular voucher system. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
The Jennings Creek wildfire has burned more than 5,000 acres along New York's border with New Jersey. Officials say it's now 90% contained, but more than 150 homes had to be evacuated, and one 18-year-old parks employee died helping to fight the blaze. A forest ranger from the Adirondacks has been a crew chief leading more than 30 rangers from around the state to contain the wildfire. Emily Russell spoke with Andrew Lewis yesterday about what strategies the rangers are using to fight the fire.
So the conditions are just so dry and so favorable for fire that if it gets an opportunity, it's going to run. You know, if you get a source of ignition across the fire line in any form, it has a high probability of ignition and then rapid spread because of the conditions. So that's what makes this such a difficult fire. When the sun comes up, the relative humidity starts to plummet and things dry out, and then the wind starts picking up. So the fire just starts pretty much waking up mid-morning. And then by mid-afternoon, you're in the heat of the day. So that's when fire activity is going to peak. And then it can extend well into the night with higher activity until that relative humidity starts to climb again, gets cooler, hopefully slows the fire down a little bit. So we wind up with a lot of action mid-afternoon, late afternoon.
So what has the firefighting been like that you've been involved in so far? What has that looked like?
So I'm down here as a crew chief. So my job is to work with helicopter platforms to deliver bucket drops from the air. So I have a far easier job than the ground pounding firefighters that are on the hill all day long. But yeah, so my perspective on the fire is from the air, conducting bucket drops. And to that end, we've been working with the Guard to utilize military helicopter platforms in addition to the state police Huey helicopter platforms for bucket drops.
You mentioned the dry conditions and what role you've been playing in this. How do those two things combine? Like, what is the strategy of fighting this wildfire as we're dealing with drought conditions in New York?
Yeah, so it's been different every day. So Saturday we had that new where it slopped over the line and broke containment. You saw a developing plume of smoke coming off the ridge and big flames on the ground, and that was a very clear moving flaming front. Went from that to this morning, we were looking at low-hanging smoke and a lot of smoldering activity with some torching trees and some visible flames in spots. But we did get started with bucket operations at 7 o'clock this morning, so as early as possible. So that's when the fire is at its quietest for the day.
When you're gaining this experience downstate fighting a big wildfire like this, how are you thinking about the Adirondacks and, you know, maybe the future of, you know, maybe a drier future here in the Adirondacks?
That is always on any ranger's mind in their patrol area. So you're always looking at it as, how would I fight a fire there? How would I fight a fire over there? So we're always keeping that in the back of our mind, and then we're learning the tactics and the lessons learned from the actual incidents. So you come back from an incident like this and you see and understand tactics for what works and what doesn't. For example, when we're using military aircraft for bucket drops, we're learning what their capabilities are, and we're developing a really good working relationship with those crews. So now we have a much better grasp on, like, next big fire, how to deploy a Chinook helicopter versus how to deploy a Black Hawk versus how to deploy a Huey. And it helps us in the future to be way more effective with our use of the tools that we have. Likewise, the firefighters in the ground are seeing the effectiveness of their burnouts, their firing operations, seeing how hose lays need to be put in, how they go together best, and just developing and refining tactics. So it translates into huge lessons learned that get disseminated. And then you go back to your normal work area. For me, the Adirondacks, when I'm looking around, I can size up, okay, if I have a fire over there, these tools are in my toolbox now, and I understand better how these tactics work in real life. So it's a huge benefit. Unfortunately, you know, it takes having a big fire to get those benefits. But that's why we go out west and work on bigger fires there, so that when we get one here like we are right now, we have a really good backbone.
That was Adirondack Forest Ranger Andrew Lewis speaking with Emily Russell yesterday from the Wildfire Command Center in Orange County. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by The Bends, Ben Cato of Jay and Ben Sharon of Watertown. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.